Well, Singapore is forging ahead to meet a target of 40% employment for people with disabilities by the end of the decade under what is called the Enabling Masterplan 2030. For more on this, Dawn is with Mr. Eric Chua. He's Senior Parliamentary Secretary for Social and Family Development. With her also is Mr. Alister Ong. He's an advocate for diversity and inclusion in Singapore.
Wei Su, thank you. Eric, Alister, it's good to see you. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having us.
Good to see you. Thank you.
So first off, this 40% employment target, you've gotten to 31% already. Is there an intention to increase that number? Are you happy with the progress?
Yeah, actually we launched the Enabling Masterplan in August last year, and therein we set our aspirational target of 40% by 2030. We said we want to get to that point by 2030. But 31% or 31.4% to be exact is really a 2-year moving average of employment rates for persons with disability in Singapore. And if you rewind time and go back 4 years to the 2018 to 2019 2-year average, it's actually 28.2%. So if you follow that growth trajectory, actually it still means that we must work much harder and also much smarter in order for us to get to 40%. And between now and 40%, actually we are talking about 10 placements of some 10,000 jobs for persons with disability. So I think the recent launch of the Enabling Business Hub in Jurong actually is a timely and opportune addition to the mix of schemes and programs that we have in place today, like the Enabling Mark, the Enabling Employment Credits, as well as the Open Door program.
So lots of avenues for increasing momentum to get to that important target, Eric.
Exactly.
Alister, let's bring you in on the conversation now. Tell us about your journey and your path towards employment.
My journey and my path to employment has really been an interesting journey. Well, when I was younger, my dad used to tell me to study hard, do finance, earn a lot of money and stay at home. And my mom used to tell me as well, and they didn't discuss, my mom would say, study hard, be a home tuition teacher, earn a lot of money and stay at home. And I was wondering to myself, why do they sound so similar? Why stay at home? Did they foresee that there will be flexible working arrangements? Did they foresee that there will be hybrid work? Wow, they are so futuristic. Why did they say that 20 years ago? And probably it was that kind of environment and landscape. But right now, with the many schemes and support, and with many employers coming forward as well, that persons with disabilities can go into the workforce and the environments that we live in and play in. And if my mom and dad, they are tuning in, they know I'm not home right now. But this is evident to show that because of the holistic support, where everyone come forward together, we can make this happen.
Exactly. That support is so important. Eric, this, the new Enabling Business Hub at Jurong, I want to speak to you about that because it's mainly logistics jobs for persons with disabilities in the West. Why logistics specifically, and what kinds of jobs are actually available in this sector?
Well, that's a good question, Dawn. And before I answer that question, maybe I can ask you, Christmas is around the corner. Do you do at least part of your shopping online on e-commerce platforms?
Oh, that would be giving the game away. But yes, okay, absolutely.
Exactly. So I talk about working harder and smarter so they can drive out employment rates for persons with disabilities in Singapore. And I think that's part of that drive to really ride on waves that are happening in the marketplace. And we have seen e-commerce platforms do well in recent years. And along with that, plenty of opportunities for job roles for persons with disabilities in the logistics sector. And we've observed that actually there are quite a number of logistics companies operating in the western part of Singapore, and which is why for Enabling Business Hub in Jurong, SG Enable has taken the lead to work with industry partner in Amazon, and they've also worked with the Singapore Logistics Association, Republic Polytechnic, as well as Social Service Agency BizLink Centre to really make this EBH, this first and pilot EBH, an inclusive hub for logistics employment.
Yeah. So this EBH, there's also the Refresh Social Compact through Forward SG. How does it tie into that?
So my parting line in the last answer, we talk about the different stakeholders that are really pitching in to make this a reality, and I think that's really the essence of Forward Singapore. Forward Singapore is not just a public consultation exercise, but it's really our collective vision of what we want Singapore to be in the future, and also related to that, how we can all pitch in to be a part of that movement in shaping and working towards and realizing that vision of Singapore. And having, our academia in Republic Polytechnic, our industry partner in Amazon, and our social agency in BizLink come together to really help us make sure that we can all work towards disability inclusion in employment. I think that's quite a good exemplification of how Forward SG can be.
Yeah. Alister, you were talking earlier about the benefits of being able to work from home. That's important, but it's not always possible for a person with disabilities. Sometimes they have to work, away from home. Talk to me about the importance of living near the place that you actually work.
That's a very good question, and I think that with or without disabilities, all of us would prefer a workplace that is easily accessible, that is of a relatively near distance as well. And I think it's the same for with or without disability. But I think what's more important is that persons with disabilities, and every one of us, we have the preference as well to either stay at home and work from home. Maybe it's more productive, but sometimes going to office is also important to interact with the colleagues, to interact with the people around. And I think that's the important piece of what we are seeing. And because of that, it's not just then creating inclusive offices of business environments, but we need to have offices that are accessible and inclusive. We need to have a robust public transport system. We need to have a caring and gracious commuters that are on board public transport. And so these are the many pieces that needs to also come together so that there is a choice and empowerment of the decision to work from home and to work in office at the same time.
And you also want meaning in your work. Everybody does.
Everyone does,
Exactly.
and
Yes.
it really brings dignity to persons with disabilities when we are in the workforce.
Are there jobs, that would be more specifically meaningful for a person with disabilities?
Definitely. So I think as long as the work that we do, the job that we do, brings forth a higher value and higher meaning and purpose, creating towards the bigger goal and the bigger picture of things, I think that would be particularly meaningful. And we see key trends that are up and coming as well, that's on the rise. There are jobs in the digital space, there are jobs in healthcare, and like what we mentioned just now in logistics. These are on top of the existing ones that we have already. For example, in F&B, for example, in the hospitality, so on and so forth. So we are seeing all this, and all these are particularly meaningful because we are contributing to the Singapore economy as well.
Eric, job redesign, that's going to be so important in this narrative,
Yes.
right, in this journey. Tell me about how we're going to get employers on board, and specifically with regards to the EBH at Jurong.
So we have talked a little bit about the industry of logistics earlier. So I think key challenge is really to reach out to employers and convince them that actually it doesn't take a lot to make sure that they too can be inclusive hirers. So the outreach is important. So other than logistics, we are also talking to employers at the national level. So we are talking to our business federations, our business chambers. So we are having conversations with the Singapore Business Federation, ASME, to really persuade more employers that they too can be inclusive hirers. And that's outreach on the employer's front. Actually, outreach needs to be done on the person with disability front as well, and the caregivers, because we do want to ensure and assure our caregivers that, hey, our persons with disabilities are well able to take on employment, and we do want more of them to step forward and to really lead a full and fulfilling life as well. And we are planning to go upstream. That's why the EBH will be working with SPED schools, special education schools, institutes of higher learning, as well as community organizations to reach out way in advance of this youth with disabilities who are seeking employment. So outreach is one key pillar. And the second key pillar is really about role modeling the way, and that's what the EBH can do. Role modeling the way not just for persons with disabilities, because they can pick up real-world skills before they fully commit themselves to the workforce. And also for employers, because then they can see how they can make simple tweaks to workflows and also adopt technologies. Just yesterday at the launch of the EBH, we have seen how Republic Polytechnic's simple technology of Put to Light, that's the name of the technology, how it actually enables persons with disabilities to become packers and to become value adders in the whole chain of the logistics flow. And I think these are very empowering, and as Alister mentioned earlier, what we really want is for our persons with disabilities to really lead full and really enriched lives. And employment can do a big part toward that objective.
Well, I want to thank both of you for coming in and sharing more about Enabling Masterplan 2030 and the progress that we've seen so far. Mr. Eric Chua, Senior Parliamentary Secretary, Ministry of Social and Family Development, and Alister Ong. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wei Su, it's back to you in the studio.